Now let's talk about font size property and the possible values, right? So here what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say this is going to be a paragraph, and I'm just going to give it a class over here, and I'm going to say this is going to be first over here like this, and then we're going to have a lorem and another lorem, right? So a few dummy texts, right? And over here what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy and paste this, and for now we're just going to have 3 of them, but we're going to change the classes, right? So if this one was the first, then this guy is going to be second, and this is going to be third, right? So we're going to have 3 of them over here like this. Now once we save this, let's go to main CSS over here, and let's start applying the rules, right? So the first font size property and the value that we can have is in pixels, right? So for the class first, I'm going to say first, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to say font size over here, and I'm going to say that this is going to be, let's say, 24 pixels, right? So you can see that with pixels it's very straightforward. We obviously need to give the value and we need to write the pixels over here, right? So obviously we could have written over here 500, right? And we can write 50, and we can write whatever we would want, right? So let's stay with 24, right? Now another option would be we'll write second, right? So now we're targeting the second paragraph, and we'll write a font size over here, and over here I'm going to say this is going to be 200%, right? And now where is the percent coming from, right? So how I'm obviously getting 200%, but 200% to what? You see, by default, right, the font size in general is going to be 16, right? So what you're looking at over here, this is 16 pixels, right? So what I'm saying that this is going to be 200, right? In reality, what it means, right, that this is going to be 32 pixels, right? So because 200 would be a 32 pixels, and that's where the actual percentages come from, right? So if I go over here and I'm going to say third, right, and I'm going to say the font size over here, if nothing major is going to happen, right, it should be exactly the same, right? Because 32 and 32, right? Now another option what we have is EMs, right? So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that this is going to be 1.5 EM, right? And again, the question, well, where's the EM coming from, right? Well, again, 16 pixels is the default size, right? 1 EM actually is 16 pixels, right? So what's happening is if we're going 1.5, this is actually exactly the same as 24, right? Now, why would we use the 200 and let's say over here with 1.5, right? So let's say that we have a situation, right? So we have a actual paragraph, right, over here like this, and let's say we're going to have a main CSS, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say that let's say for the whole body, right, I would want a font size, right? So I'm going to say body, and I'm going to say font size, I'm going to say something like 20, right? So 20 pixels, right? But you can see what's happening, right, that if these are set with 20 pixels, right, what's happening with this one, right, with the whole thing with 200, it's actually doubling that 20, right? So let me actually delete these so maybe we can see better, right? So over here, this is going to be 20 pixels for all of them, right? For all the paragraphs. But let's say the second one, I would actually want to double, right? But I would want it double regarding to whatever the other sizes are, right? So I want the double actually towards this 20 pixels, right? Not just 16 that's come by default, but actually to 20 pixels. So over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say this is going to be second over here, and I'm going to say this is going to be font size over here. I'm going to say 200 over here like this, right? And the idea is that this should be exactly the same over here. If I would have written over here 40 pixels, right? So if we would put these side by side, they should be exactly the same. But this way, we can actually scale towards whatever we have else in a document, right? Not just towards those 16%. And the same work with EMs, right? So here, if you remember, again, if we have 1 EM, right? And if we're going to go according to this 20 pixels, right? So what I'm going to say, this is going to be 2 EMs, right? And again, this should be 40, right? So if we go back over here and the third, right? And if we remember that the class is going to override this, right? Just because over here it says 20, the class is actually override this because it's more specific. And I'm going to say font size over here, and I'm going to say 40, right? Because now 1 EM actually is towards the 20 pixels, right? Not towards 16. So I'm going to say over here that this is going to be 40 pixels, right? And it is exactly the same, right? So this is how we can work with these values. And these values we're also going to use for the images and for the layouts sometimes, right? Or for the size of the div or something, right? So for now, we're just looking at the font size, which is obviously important property and important values, but these pixels, EMs, and the percentages, right? So let me write maybe 200% over here, right? So 200%, they will gonna be both used also to other elements, not just with the font size property.